I was drowning in $47,000 of debt, working double shifts at a greasy Chicago diner, invisible to the world, until one rainy night changed everything. A black SUV hydroplaned, slammed into me, and I hit the pavement thinking, this is how it ends. Broke, broken, alone. But the driver wasn't just any guy. He was Alexander Voss, billionaire, tech genius, and the man who'd been secretly watching me for months. What started as a terrifying accident turned into the riskiest deal of my life. Move into his penthouse, no strings, or so I thought. Secrets, obsession, cancer, power plays, love. One decision almost destroyed me, and the next one made me unstoppable. This is my true story. Stick around. You won't believe what happened next. My name is Elena Marquez, and at 28 years old, I already felt like life had chewed me up and spit me out on the grimy sidewalks of Chicago. I wasn't supposed to end up here. Growing up in a small town outside Milwaukee, I had dreams bigger than the rusty swing set in my backyard. Dreams of writing novels that made people feel less alone, of building something meaningful out of words, instead of scraping by on minimum wage and tips that barely covered the bus fare home. But dreams don't pay rent, and reality has a cruel way of rewriting your story. I owed $47,312.47. I kept the exact number scribbled on the back of an old receipt in my wallet, like some twisted talisman. Student loans from the community college creative writing classes I never finished. Credit cards I maxed out trying to keep the lights on after Mom got sick and Dad disappeared with whatever dignity he had left. Medical bills that arrived faster than condolences. Every month I paid the minimums, watched the interest pile up like snow in January, and told myself tomorrow would be different. Tomorrow I'd quit the diner. Tomorrow I'd finish that manuscript gathering dust on my cracked laptop. Tomorrow I'd stop feeling invisible. Tomorrow never came. The diner was called Rosie's, faded red booths, fluorescent lights that buzzed like dying insects, and a jukebox that hadn't worked since the Clinton administration. I worked the morning rush and the graveyard shift 6 days a week, sometimes 7 when someone called in sick. My uniform smelled like grease and coffee no matter how many times I washed it. Customers barely looked at me. I was just the girl who refilled cups and remembered who liked extra cream. Invisible. That was the word that followed me everywhere. That night, October 17th, a Thursday, was one of those Chicago specials. Cold rain falling sideways, wind whipping off the lake like it had a personal grudge. The dinner crowd had thinned to a few regulars nursing bottomless coffee, and the occasional drunk stumbling in for fries. By 1:47 a.m., I flipped the close sign, wiped down the last table, counted the tips, $23 and change, pathetic, and locked up. My manager, Tony, had already left, probably to hit the bar down the block. He never offered rides anymore, said I was tough enough to handle the walk. The walk. 6 blocks to my apartment building in Pilsen, past shuttered storefronts and overflowing dumpsters. No umbrella. I'd lost the last one months ago. Just my thin black jacket, the one with the zipper that caught every time, and sneakers with holes in the soles. Rain soaked through in seconds, my hair plastered to my face. I kept my head down, shoulders hunched, counting cracks in the sidewalk to distract from the cold seeping into my bones. I was halfway down Halsted when I heard it, the low growl of an engine, too fast for the weather. Headlights cut through the downpour like knives. A black SUV, sleek, expensive, the kind you see idling outside high-end hotels, came barreling around the corner. Tires hit a puddle, hydroplaned. Time slowed. I froze. The impact wasn't a full-on crash. It was worse, a glancing blow to my left leg as I tried to jump back. The force lifted me off my feet. I twisted midair, arms flailing, and slammed into the wet asphalt shoulder first. Pain detonated in my thigh, white-hot and blinding. My head cracked against the curb. Stars burst behind my eyes. The world tilted, rain pounding my face like tiny fists. Tires screeched. A door flew open. Footsteps, quick, purposeful, splashed toward me. "Don't move," a man's commanded voice. Deep, calm. The kind of calm that comes from being used to giving orders. "I'm calling 911. Stay with me." I tried to focus. Through the blur of rain and pain, I saw him. Tall, broad-shouldered, dark suit soaked instantly. No tie, top button undone. Phone pressed to his ear with one hand, the other hovering like he wanted to touch me that didn't know where it was safe. Female, mid-20s, pedestrian struck by vehicle. Conscious but in pain. Possible leg fracture. Send paramedics now. Northwestern Memorial if you can reroute. He spoke fast, precise, no panic, like he'd done this before. I groaned, trying to sit up. Fire shot through my leg. My phone? I mumbled stupidly, like that mired. Shh, don't try to move. He knelt beside me, shielding my face from the rain with his body. His cologne cut through the wet pavement smell, something expensive, cedar and smoke. What's your name? Elena, I whispered. My teeth chattered so hard I could barely get it out. Elena, I've got you. Help's coming. Just breathe. I wanted to scream at him, to ask why he was driving like that in this weather, to tell him I couldn't afford an ambulance, let alone a hospital. But the pain was swallowing everything. My vision tunneled. The rain sounded farther away. His hand finally touched me, gently, on my shoulder. Stay awake, Elena. Talk to me. Tell me something. Anything. I laughed, a broken, wet sound. I'm broke, I rasped. That's something. He didn't laugh back. His grip tightened just a fraction. Not for long, he said quietly, almost to himself. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder. Red and blue lights painted the rain. I felt his thumb brush a strand of hair from my forehead, such a small, intimate gesture from a total stranger. Paramedics swarmed. They lifted me onto a backboard. I caught one last glimpse of him standing there in the downpour, suit ruined, watching me like I was the only thing that mattered in the entire city. As they loaded me into the ambulance, darkness crept in at the edges. My last coherent thought wasn't about the pain or the debt or the cold. It was this. This is how it ends. Broke, broken, and alone. I didn't know yet that the man in the black suit was Alexander Voss, billionaire, tech genius, the most powerful man most people in Chicago had never heard of. And I didn't know that the accident wasn't an accident at all. But that night, lying on the wet street with rain mixing with my tears, all I felt was the weight of everything I'd lost pressing down harder than the SUV ever could. I closed my eyes, and everything changed.
The first thing I noticed when consciousness clawed its way back was the smell. Not the sour bleach and old urine of the county hospital ER I'd braced myself for, but something clean, almost luxurious. Fresh linens, faint lavender, and the subtle metallic tang of medical equipment that probably cost more than my entire apartment building. My eyelids felt glued shut. I forced them open. White walls, soft lighting, a wide window showing the Chicago skyline glittering under a bruised dawn sky. No beeping chaos, no curtained-off chaos of other patients. The first thing I noticed when consciousness clawed its way back was the smell. Not the sour bleach and old urine of the county hospital ER I'd braced myself for, but something clean, almost luxurious. Fresh linens, faint lavender, and the subtle metallic tang of medical equipment that probably cost more than my entire apartment building. My eyelids felt glued shut. I forced them open. White walls, soft lighting, a wide window showing the Chicago skyline glittering under a bruised dawn sky. No beeping chaos, no curtained-off chaos of other patients. This was a private room, a suite, the kind you see in movies about rich people who get special treatment. My left leg throbbed under a heavy cast that went from ankle to mid-thigh. An IV dripped steadily into my arm. A monitor beside the bed showed steady numbers I didn't understand. Panic rose fast. How was I going to pay for this? One night here would probably wipe out my savings, if I even had any left after last month's rent. A nurse in navy scrubs entered, smiling like we were old friends. "Good morning, Elena. How's the pain?" "Like someone ran me over with an SUV," I croaked. My throat was sandpaper. She chuckled softly. "Fair. You're on a morphine drip, so it should ease up soon. Dr. Patel will be in shortly. Your surgery went perfectly. Clean fracture, no internal damage. You're lucky." Lucky. The word tasted bitter. How long have I been here?" "About 36 hours. You were brought in late Thursday night. It's Saturday morning now." Saturday. I'd missed 2 shifts. Tony would fire me for sure. Bills would stack higher. I tried to sit up. Pain lanced through my leg like lightning. I hissed and fell back. "Easy," the nurse said, adjusting my pillow. "No weight on that leg for at least 6 weeks. We've got you set up with physical therapy starting Monday." Monday. I wouldn't even have a job by then. She checked my vitals, then paused at the door. "Oh, one more thing. Your bill's been taken care of. The gentleman who brought you in insisted. Full coverage, including rehab, follow-ups, everything." My brain stalled. "What gentleman?" "The driver. He's been here every few hours since you arrived. Waiting outside right now, actually. Should I send him in?" Before I could answer, the door opened wider. He stepped inside like he owned the hospital, which, for all I knew, he might. Alexander Voss, I didn't recognize the name at first. I wasn't exactly scrolling Forbes while wiping down counters at Rosie's, but even I knew the face once I saw it up close. Sharp cheekbones, dark hair streaked with premature silver at the temples, eyes the color of storm clouds over Lake Michigan. Mid-40s, maybe. Tailored charcoal suit that looked like it had never seen rain, unlike the drenched one he'd worn the night before. He carried a small paper bag and 2 to-go cups from a place that definitely wasn't Starbucks. The nurse excused herself with a knowing smile and closed the door behind her. He didn't sit right away. He stood at the foot of the bed, studying me like I was a puzzle he'd been trying to solve for years. "Elena," he said. His voice was the same calm command from the street, but softer now. "How are you feeling?" "Confused," I answered honestly, "and broke, and wondering why I'm in a room that probably cost more per night than my rent." A faint smile touched his lips, not mocking, almost relieved. "You're not paying for any of it." I made sure of that. I stared at him. "Why?" "Because I hit you." Simple, direct, no excuses. "You could have just paid the ambulance bill and left. Most people would. I'm not most people." "No kidding." He finally moved, pulling a chair closer and sitting. He set one of the coffees on my tray table. Black, 2 sugars. The nurse said that's how you take it at the diner. My stomach twisted. You know how I take my coffee?" "I've been to Rosie's a few times." He didn't elaborate. Didn't need to. The implication hung there. Heavy. I ignored the coffee. "Who are you exactly?" "Alexander Voss." He said it like it should mean something. When I didn't react, he added, "I founded Voss Dynamics. AI infrastructure mostly. We build the backbone for a lot of the tech you use every day without realizing it." Billionaire. The word clicked into place. I'd seen headlines once or twice. Reclusive genius. Youngest self-made tech billionaire under 45. Something about a hostile takeover he'd crushed last year. The kind of man who lived in penthouses and flew private. Not the kind who knelt in the rain beside a nobody like me. "Why were you at Rosie's?" "For coffee," he said simply. Then quieter. "And you?" My heart kicked against my ribs. "That's creepy." I know. No denial. No defensiveness. Just admission. I should have introduced myself weeks ago. Instead, I watched. Like an idiot. Like someone who forgot how to be normal. I swallowed. And then you ran me over. His jaw tightened. It wasn't planned. I was distracted. Thinking about whether tonight was the night I'd finally say something. The rain, the speed. I lost control for a split second. But the second mattered. Silence stretched between us. Rain tapped the window like it was trying to get in. "I don't want your pity," I said, finally. "Or your money." "It's not pity." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "It's responsibility. And maybe something else." He paused, eyes locking on mine. "Stay here as long as you need. No strings. Private physical therapy. A place to recover that isn't wherever you live now. I'll cover everything." I laughed. A short, bitter sound. "No strings?" "Everyone has strings, Mr. Voss." "Alex," he corrected. "And you're right. So let's call it a debt I'll never fully repay. But I can start." I looked around the room. Fresh flowers on the sill. White lilies, my favorite, though I'd never told anyone that. A stack of books on the side table. A worn copy of The Bell Jar. A new hardcover of a novel I'd mentioned wanting to read once on a slow shift when I thought no one was listening. He'd been paying attention. Too much attention. "Why me?" I whispered. He exhaled slowly. "Because in a city full of noise, you were quiet. And real. You smiled at people even when they didn't deserve it.
You tipped out the busboys, even when your own tips were garbage. You looked tired, but never defeated. I wanted to know what that felt like. Tears burned behind my eyes. I blinked them back. I'm not some charity case. Or a project. I don't want to fix you, he said. I want to help you fix yourself. If you'll let me. I stared at the coffee cooling on the tray. At the cast trapping my leg. At the man who turned my worst night into something I couldn't quite name. I need time to think. Take all the time you need. He stood, buttoning his jacket. I'll be back tomorrow. And the day after. Until you tell me to leave. He paused at the door. One more thing. Your laptop and bag from the accident. They're in the closet. Charger too. If you want to write, the quiet here is good for that. Then he was gone. I lay there, heart hammering, staring at the ceiling. The morphine dulled the pain in my leg, but nothing dulled the storm in my chest. Fear, anger, curiosity, and something dangerously close to hope. I didn't know it yet, but that hospital room wasn't just a place to heal my body. It was the beginning of the rest of my life. And Alexander Voss, Alex, wasn't just the man who'd hit me. He was the man who'd been waiting for me to crash into his world all along.
The days blurred into a strange, suspended rhythm. Mornings started with physical therapy, gentle stretches that made me grit my teeth and curse under my breath. Afternoons were quiet, the kind of quiet I'd never known in my old life. No clatter of dishes, no shouting orders, no constant hum of survival. Carrying something small, a latte from a place that charged $8 for coffee, a paperback he thought I'd like, once even a tiny succulent in a ceramic pot because he'd noticed I kept staring at the empty windowsill. He'd sit in the same chair by the bed, legs crossed, and we'd talk. Real talk, not small talk. I told him about growing up in that drafty house outside Milwaukee, Mom working double shifts at the factory, Dad promising he'd quit drinking next month. The way the library became my escape, because books didn't judge you for wearing the same hoodie 3 days in a row. I told him about dropping out of community college when the loans got too heavy and Mom's chemo bills started arriving. About the novel I'd started writing at 19, half finished, stored on a cracked hard drive, and how I still dreamed of finishing it, even if no one ever read it. He listened, really listened. No interruptions, no fixing, just those gray eyes steady on mine, like every word mattered. In return, he gave me pieces of himself, not the polished Forbes version, the real ones. How he'd coded his first AI prototype in a dorm room at MIT because he couldn't sleep after his little sister died in a car accident when he was 17. How Foss Dynamics started as a way to predict traffic patterns so no one else would lose someone the way he had. How success felt like armor at first, then like a cage. How most people wanted something from him, money, status, access, and how exhausting it was to never know who was real. "You're real," he said one evening, voice low. The sun had dipped below the skyline, painting the room in bruised purples and golds. "That's why I kept coming back to the diner. You never performed for me. You didn't even know who I was." I snorted. "I thought you were just another suit who liked his coffee black and his service fast." "Exactly." A small, almost boyish smile. Refreshing. We fell into a pattern. He'd stay until visiting hours ended, sometimes longer if the nurses liked him enough to look the other way. We talked about everything and nothing. Chicago winters, favorite movies, the way city lights looked from 30 floors up versus street level. I started to relax around him, started to forget, for minutes at a time, that he was the reason I was here. Then came the night that shattered it. It was late, past 10. The hospital had gone quiet, lights dimmed in the halls. I couldn't sleep. The cast itched, my mind raced.
Alex had left an hour earlier, promising to bring breakfast tomorrow. I was flipping through channels on the wall-mounted TV when the door opened softly. He stepped in, coat still on, hair damp from the drizzle outside. But something was different. His shoulders were tense, jaw set like he'd made a decision he didn't like. "Elena," he said. No greeting, no coffee, just my name, heavy. I muted the TV. "What's wrong?" He closed the door, locked it. The click sounded louder than it should have. "I can't keep pretending this is normal," he said. "You deserve the truth before you decide whether to let me keep coming here." My pulse kicked up. "What truth?" He crossed to the window, stared out at the city lights like they could give him courage. Then he turned back to me. "I didn't hit you by accident." The words landed like a slap. My breath caught. "What?" "I saw you weeks earlier, at Rosie's. I came in one rainy afternoon, same kind of weather as that night. You were behind the counter, laughing at something a regular said, even though your eyes looked tired. I kept coming back, every few days, watching. Not in a predatory way. At least that's what I told myself. I just needed to see you. You were the only person in months who didn't look at me like I was a wallet with legs." I stared at him, mouth dry. "You stalked me." The word hung between us, ugly and sharp. He didn't flinch. "Yes, I did. I learned your shifts, your route home. I told myself I'd introduce myself eventually. That night, I was parked down the block, waiting for you to get off, debating whether to finally walk in and say something normal. Then you stepped out, rain everywhere. I pulled out too fast. The wheel slipped on the wet street, or maybe my hand shook. I don't know. But I hit you, and the second the car made contact, I knew I'd ruined everything before it even started. Silence roared in my ears. I felt sick, violated, terrified. You're telling me you plan to... What? Meet me by running me down? No. His voice cracked just once. I never wanted to hurt you. I wanted to know you. And I was too much of a coward to do it the normal way. So I watched. And then I destroyed the one thing I cared about seeing. Tears burned my eyes. I wiped them away angrily. Get out. Elena. Get out. He didn't move. Just stood there, hands in his pockets, looking smaller than I'd ever seen him. I'll go, he said quietly. But before I do, hear this. I've never told anyone the full truth about that night. Not my lawyers, not my team, not even my closest friend. I could have walked away after the ambulance came, paid the bills anonymously and disappeared. But I couldn't. Because the moment I saw you on the ground, bleeding in the rain, I realized I'd rather you hate me forever than never see you again. He took a step toward the door, then stopped. I'm not asking forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I'm asking you to believe this. Every day since has been about making it right. Not buying you off, not controlling you. Just being here. If you want me gone for good, say it. I'll make sure your care is covered through recovery and beyond, and you'll never see me again. My chest ached. Part of me wanted to scream, to throw something, to call security. Another part, the part that remembered how he'd shielded my face from the rain, how he'd listened like my stories were the most important thing in his world, couldn't reconcile that man with this confession. Why tell me now? I whispered. Because secrets are poison, and I don't want to poison whatever this is before it has a chance to breathe. He waited. I didn't speak. Finally, he nodded once. Good night, Elena. The door closed softly behind him. I sat there in the dark room, heart hammering, replaying every conversation, every look, every small kindness. Was he dangerous? Obsessive? Broken? Or was he just a man who'd spent too long alone at the top and saw something in me worth risking everything for? I didn't sleep that night. By morning, I still didn't have an answer. But I knew one thing. The accident hadn't been random. And whatever came next, I couldn't pretend it was.
The morning after Alex's confession, I woke up gangry. Not the hot, explosive kind, more like a slow, cold burn that settled deep in my chest and refused to leave. I stared at the ceiling tiles, counting the little dots in the acoustic panels, trying to decide what to do with a man who'd admitted to stalking me and then accidentally on purpose running me over.
Part of me screamed to call the police. Another part, the quieter, more dangerous part, kept replaying the way his voice cracked when he said he'd rather I hated him than never see him again. It was messed up. It was manipulative. It was also the most honest thing anyone had said to me in years. By noon, the nurses had me up on crutches for the first time. I hobbled to the window, staring down at the traffic crawling along Michigan Avenue. The city looked small from up here. People looked smaller. I felt smaller too. That's when he knocked. I didn't say come in. He entered anyway, slowly, like he was stepping into a minefield. He wasn't in a suit today. Dark jeans, gray cashmere sweater, sleeves pushed to his elbows. Casual billionaire. It almost made him look human. I brought breakfast, he said, holding up a paper bag from a place called the Dearborn. Egg white scramble, avocado toast, fresh fruit. And coffee, black, 2 sugars. I didn't move from the window. You think food fixes this? No, he set the bag on the tray table anyway. Nothing fixes what I did. But I figured you hadn't eaten. Silence stretched, thick, uncomfortable. Finally, I turned. You said no more secrets. Was that a lie too? It wasn't. He met my eyes. Everything I told you last night was the truth. The whole ugly truth. I crutched closer, anger giving me momentum. Then why should I believe anything else you say? You watched me for weeks. You documented my life like some creep. And now you're here playing savior? I'm not playing anything. His voice stayed steady, but I saw the flicker in his jaw, the effort it took to keep calm. I'm offering you a way out. Not because I feel guilty, though God knows I do, but because you deserve better than scraping by in a roach motel, working yourself to death for people who don't even remember your name. I laughed, sharp. And what's the catch, Alex? Because there's always a catch. He exhaled. Move into my penthouse. No rent, no expectations, no games. You get the guest wing, private bedroom, bathroom, office space, full access to the kitchen, the gym, the library. You heal, you write, you rebuild. In return, he hesitated. For the first time since I'd met him, he looked almost vulnerable. In return, he continued, let me help you. And maybe, teach me what it's like to feel something real again. Not transactions, not leverage, just human. My heart slammed against my ribs. The offer hung there like smoke, tempting, terrifying. You're asking me to live with the man who stalked me, I said flatly. I'm asking you to give me a chance to prove I'm more than that one mistake. He stepped closer, not crowding, but close enough I could smell the rain on his coat from outside. If at any point you want out, you walk, no questions. I'll set you up in an apartment of your choosing, cover 6 months' rent, and disappear from your life. Door code changes, number blocked, gone. I searched his face for the lie, for the smirk, for anything that said this was a power play. All I saw was a man who looked like he hadn't slept in days. Why me? I asked again. It was the same question from the hospital bed, but it felt heavier now. Because you make me remember who I was before the money swallowed everything. His voice dropped. Before my sister died, I used to dream about building things that helped people. Now I build empires that mostly help me stay untouchable. You still care. Even when life kicked you in the teeth, you cared. About the busboys, about the old lady who comes in for decaf every Tuesday, about strangers. That's rare. And I'm selfish enough to want some of it. Tears pricked my eyes. I hated how easily he could reach inside me. I need to think, I said. Take all the time you need. He nodded once. I'll be at the office until 6. After that, I'll come back if you want me to, or I won't. He left without another word. The rest of the day was torture. I hobbled around the room on crutches, ate the breakfast he brought, perfectly cooked, annoyingly delicious, stared at my phone, at the eviction notice email from my landlord that had come in while I was unconscious, at the manuscript file I hadn't opened in months. By 5:30, I'd made my choice. When he returned, I was sitting on the edge of the bed, crutches propped beside me, small duffel bag packed with the few things the hospital had salvaged from the accident. I'm not saying yes forever, I told him. I'm saying yes for now, until my leg heals, until I can stand on my own again, literally and figuratively. And if I smell one hint of manipulation, one more secret, I'm gone. He nodded, no triumph in his eyes, just quiet relief. Understood. The drive to his building was silent. A sleek black Escalade with tinted windows waited at the hospital curb. His driver, a stoic man named Marcus, held the door. I slid into the back seat beside Alex. The leather was butter soft. The heater blasted warmth. Outside, Chicago blurred past in streaks of neon and rain. His penthouse was on the top floor of a glass tower overlooking Lake Michigan. The elevator opened directly into the foyer. Marble floors, modern art on the walls, floor-to-ceiling windows that made the city feel like it belonged to us. He showed me the guest wing without fanfare. A king bed with crisp white sheets, a bathroom bigger than my old apartment, A desk facing the lake, already stocked with notebooks, pens, a new MacBook, still in the box. I didn't assume you'd want to use it right away, he said, but it's there if you do. I ran my fingers over the keyboard. It felt like a lifeline. He gave me a black Amex card next. No limit. Use it for whatever you need. Clothes, books, food delivery, therapy if you want it, anything. I stared at the card like it might bite. This feels like a trap. It's not. He met my eyes. It's freedom. The kind you haven't had in a long time. That night alone in the massive bed, I opened my laptop for the first time in months. The cursor blanked on a blank page. My fingers hovered. Then I started typing. Not the old novel, something new. About a woman who crashed into a stranger's life, and maybe, just maybe, found her own in the wreckage. Across the penthouse, in his study, I knew Alex was awake too. Lights still on, probably staring to the same dark water I was. I didn't trust him yet, not fully. But for the first time in years, I didn't feel invisible. And that feeling, fragile, dangerous, electric, was worth the risk. At least for now.
The penthouse felt like a dream at first. Too quiet, too clean, too perfect. I woke up every morning to sunlight pouring across Lake Michigan, the water glittering like shattered glass. No alarm clock blaring at 5 a.m., no roaches skittering across the floor, no landlord banging on the door for rent. Just silence and the soft hum of the city far below. I spent the first week mostly in the guest wing, healing, writing, avoiding Alex as much as possible without being rude. He gave me space. Breakfast delivered to my door. Notes left on the kitchen island. PT at 10. Marcus will drive you. Groceries restocked. Let me know if you need anything specific. He was careful, polite, almost formal, like he was walking on eggshells made of glass. But curiosity is a dangerous thing. It started small. I'd wander the main living area when he was at the office, touching the spines of leather-bound books in his library, running my fingers along the cool marble counters, staring at the abstract paintings that probably cost more than my entire life so far. Everything felt curated, controlled, like a stage set for someone who never quite lived in it. One afternoon, rain drumming against the windows again, Chicago couldn't seem to decide if it wanted to drown us or just remind us we were alive. I limped into the hallway off the study. My crutches clicked softly on the hardwood. I was looking for a fresh notebook. The one on my desk had filled up fast with fragmented scenes, half-formed characters, and too many questions about the man who'd brought me here. That's when I noticed the bookshelf. It was built into the wall, floor-to-ceiling walnut, heavy with first editions and art books. But one section looked off. The shelves didn't quite align. A faint seam ran vertically behind a row of philosophy texts. Nietzsche, Camus, Sartre. The kind of books people display to look deep, not the kind they actually read at 3 a.m. when the darkness presses in. I leaned closer, pressed my palm against the wood. It clicked. The panel slid open, smooth, silent, like it had been waiting. A narrow door, no handle, just a hidden latch I'd accidentally triggered. My heart kicked hard. I should have walked away, should have closed it and pretended I'd never seen it. Instead, I pushed the door wider. Darkness inside. I fumbled for a light switch. A single overhead bulb flickered on. The room was small, maybe 10 by 12, windowless, soundproofed judging by the thick panels on the walls. And every inch of those walls was covered. Photos. Hundreds of them. All of me. Black and white shots from the diner. Me wiping down a booth, head down, hair falling in my face. Me laughing at something the cook said, mouth open, eyes crinkling. Me standing outside in the rain after closing, shoulders hunched, lighting a cigarette I'd bummed from a regular because I couldn't afford my own anymore. Color ones too. Me walking home on Helsted, grocery bag swinging from one hand. Me sitting on a park bench in Pilsen, staring at nothing, tears frozen on my cheeks after a particularly bad phone call with a debt collector. Me asleep on the diner counter during a slow shift, cheek pressed to my folded arms. My whole invisible life, captured in high resolution. My stomach dropped so fast I almost threw up. There were dates stamped in the corners. The earliest went back almost 4 months, long before the accident, long before he'd ever spoken to me. A corkboard on the far wall held printed emails, my old blog post from years ago, the ones I'd written under a pseudonym about surviving poverty, about dreaming when the world tells you to stop. Red string connected them to printouts of my social media, sparse, mostly old photos, to a Google Maps screenshot of my apartment building, to a copy of my W-2 from Rosie's. I backed up until my shoulders hit the doorframe. Footsteps. Slow. Measured. Alex appeared in the doorway. He didn't look surprised, just resigned. I knew you'd find it eventually, he said quietly.
I couldn't speak at first. My throat had closed. "This is insane," I finally managed. My voice cracked. "You're insane." He didn't deny it, didn't defend himself. Just stepped inside, hands loose at his sides, like he was surrendering. "I started it after the first time I saw you," he said. "I told myself it was research, background, making sure you weren't. I don't know, someone planted to get close to me. Paranoia from too many years in this world. But that was a lie, I told myself. The truth is, I couldn't stop looking. Every photo felt like proof you were real, that someone out there still felt things the way I used to." I shook my head, tears burned hot trails down my cheeks. "You had no right." "I know. You violated me. Every single day I walked home thinking I was alone. You were watching." "Yes." I wanted to hit him, to scream, to run, but my leg throbbed, crutches useless in this tiny space, and the weight of it all pinned me in place. "Why keep it?" I whispered. "Why not delete it after the accident, after you got what you wanted?" "Because deleting it would be pretending it never happened." His voice was raw, and I needed to remember what I almost destroyed, what I did destroy for a while. He took one step closer. I flinched. He stopped immediately. "I'm not going to touch you," he said. "I'm not going to ask you to forgive this, but I will tell you the rest. The night of the accident, I was coming to say goodbye, to stop, to leave you alone forever. I'd convinced myself I was toxic, that you were better off never knowing I existed. Then the rain, the slip, and suddenly you were on the ground, and all I could think was that I'd finally broken the one good thing I'd ever seen." Silence swallowed the room. I looked at the photos again, at the pain frozen in some of them, at the small, stubborn smiles in others. "You said you wanted to learn what real felt like," I said. My voice trembled. "This isn't real. This is obsession." "Maybe," he swallowed hard, "but obsession can be the start of something else, if you let it." I laughed, a broken, ugly sound. "You think I'm going to stay here, after this?" "I think," he said slowly, "that you're going to decide what happens next, not me. You can call the police right now. I won't stop you. You can take everything in here, photos, drives, whatever, and burn it. You can leave tonight. Marcus will drive you anywhere. Or," he dropped to his knees, right there on the hardwood, not dramatically, not for show, just kneeled. "Or you can stay," he finished, "and make me earn every single day from here on out. No more hidden rooms, no more watching from shadows. Just me, trying, really trying, to be the man who deserves to stand next to you." Tears streamed freely now. I couldn't stop them. I looked down at him, Alexander Voss, billionaire, genius, broken man, on his knees in front of a girl who'd once thought her highest ambition was keeping the lights on. Power shifted in that moment. Not the kind that came with money or status, the kind that came from choice. I didn't answer right away. I reached out, slowly, and touched the nearest photo. My fingers brushed the glossy surface. Me, smiling at a customer, unaware anyone was watching. Then I looked back at him. "Get up," I said. He rose. "Destroy it," I told him. "All of it, tonight, in front of me. Hard drives, prints, everything." He nodded once. "And then," I continued, voice steadier now, "you start over, from zero. No shortcuts, no secrets. If you want any part of this, whatever this is, you earn it. Day by day, like a normal person." "I will." I crunched past him, out of the room, into the hallway. Behind me, I heard the first rip of paper. Then another. The soft thud of a hard drive hitting the floor. I didn't turn around to watch, but I stayed. Not because I trusted him yet. Because for the first time, I trusted myself to walk away, if I ever had to. And that changed everything.
I didn't leave that night. I could have, should have, maybe. The hidden room still smelled faintly of torn paper and shattered plastic. Alex had smashed the old hard drives with a hammer right there on the floor while I watched from the doorway, crutches digging into my armpits. He didn't hesitate, didn't ask for mercy, just destroyed every trace until the floor looked like a crime scene of secrets. Then he swept it up himself, quietly, methodically, like cleaning up after a storm he'd caused. I stood there the whole time, silent. When it was done, he looked at me, not with triumph, not with expectation, just waiting. I crushed back to my room without a word, locked the door, sat on the edge of the bed until my leg throbbed and my eyes burned from crying. I thought about calling an Uber, about dragging my duffel down that marble hallway and disappearing into the Chicago night. But every time I reached for my phone, something stopped me. Not him. Me. Because beneath the violation, beneath the fear, there was a tiny, stubborn spark. The first time in years someone had seen me, really seen me, and hadn't looked away. Even if the way he'd done it was wrong, even if it terrified me. So I stayed.
The next morning, I found him in the kitchen at dawn, sleeves rolled up, making coffee like nothing had happened. He didn't push, didn't apologize again, just poured me a mug, black, 2 sugars, and slid it across the island. "Marcus is downstairs whenever you're ready for PT," he said. I took the mug. Our fingers didn't touch. That became the new rhythm. Careful, deliberate. No more hidden doors, no more watching from shadows. We started over like strangers who'd survived something catastrophic together. He asked before he entered a room. He knocked on my door even when it was open. He stopped bringing gifts unannounced. Everything now came with a question. "Would you like this? Is this okay?" I answered honestly. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. And slowly, agonizingly slowly, something shifted. We started going out. Not big, flashy dates. Nothing that screamed billionaire romance. Small things. A quiet walk along the lakefront when the wind wasn't trying to kill us. Late night drives through empty streets, windows cracked, jazz playing low on the stereo. A hole-in-the-wall taqueria in Pilsen where the owner knew me from Rosie's days and called me Mija like family. Alex sat across from me in a cracked vinyl booth, sleeves pushed up, eating street tacos like he'd never tasted anything better. He taught me things, not in a condescending way, more like sharing tools he'd earned the hard way. How to read a room before you speak, how to spot leverage in a conversation, how power isn't always loud. Sometimes it's the silence you refuse to fill. I soaked it up, not because I wanted his empire, because I was tired of being invisible, tired of letting the world decide my worth. In return, I taught him the things money can't buy. How to laugh until your sides hurt at something stupid, how to sit in silence without needing to fill it, how to admit you're scared without it feeling like weakness. One night after a long day of board meetings that left him hollow-eyed, I found him on the terrace staring at the dark water. I didn't say anything, just sat beside him, shoulder to shoulder. After 20 minutes, he spoke. "I don't know how to do this," he said. "Be close to someone without controlling the outcome." I turned to him. "Then don't control it. Just be here." He looked at me like I'd handed him something fragile and priceless. Love didn't arrive with fireworks. He crept in on soft feet, through shared silences, through the way he'd adjust my pillow when I fell asleep reading, through the quiet mornings when we drank coffee and watched the sun rise over the lake without needing words. But the world outside wasn't content to let us rebuild in peace. Her name was Victoria Lang. I first heard it in passing, a phone call Alex took in his study, voice low and clipped. "Victoria, we're done. The board voted. Move on." He hung up without waiting for a reply. I didn't ask then. I should have. A week later, the first email arrived. Anonymous account. Subject: "You think you can hide her?" Attached: a photo of me stepping out of Alex's building, time-stamped 2 days earlier. My hair messy from the wind, crutches under my arms, looking small against the glass tower. My stomach turned to ice. Alex stared at the screen when I showed him. His face went blank, the way it did when he was calculating moves 3 steps ahead. "Victoria," he said, no question mark. "Your ex. Business partner, ex, both." He rubbed his jaw. "She co-founded Voss Dynamics. We built it together. When I bought her out last year, clean, generous terms, she didn't take it well. Thought she deserved more. Thought she still owned part of me." He paced. "She's been circling ever since. Leaks to the press. Whispers to investors. Now this." Another photo came the next day. Me in physical therapy, laughing at when the therapist said. Then one of us at the taqueria, his hand brushing mine across the table. The messages escalated. Cool ticker narrative sells well. Imagine the headlines. Billionaire's mystery woman. From diner waitress to penthouse princess. How much is he paying you, Elena? I wanted to disappear again. Crawl back into invisibility where no one could touch me. Alex refused to let me stay. He said that night on the terrace. Rain starting again. Chicago's favorite soundtrack. I looked at him. Really looked. The man who'd once terrified me now looked terrified himself. Not of Victoria. Of losing whatever fragile thing we built. How? I asked. He told me. We spent the next 3 days digging. Alex opened his files. Old emails. Financial records. Board minutes. I used what he taught me. Pattern recognition. Leverage. Patience. We founded in the 3rd year of the company. Small transfers Victoria had authorized to offshore accounts. Not enough to ruin her on its own, but enough to raise questions. Enough to make the board nervous. We compiled it quietly. Clean. Irrefutable. Then we waited. She made her move first. A Sunday morning. Tabloid Sun dropped the story. Billionaire Alexander Voss's secret live-in lover. Waitress with a criminal past. They had hospital records. My name, the accident, the covered bills. They had grainy shots of me entering the penthouse. They implied I was a con artist. A user. A gold digger riding a broken leg to riches. Comments exploded online. Hate. Jealousy. Speculation. I sat on the couch. Phone in hand. Shaking. Alex knelt in front of me. Took the phone gently. Turned it off. They don't know you, he said. But I do. And I'm not letting her rewrite your story. We scheduled the meeting for Tuesday. Neutral ground. Private conference room at a law firm in town. Victoria arrived in a red power suit. Hair perfect. Smile sharp as glass. She looked at me like I was dirt on her shoe. You're the flavor of the month, she said. Cute. How long until he gets bored? Alex didn't flinch. We're here to end this, Victoria. Quietly or loudly. Your choice. She laughed. You think you can scare me with old dirt? I stood. Still on crutches. But steady. Walked to the table. Laid out the folder. Embezzlement. I said. 3.2 million. Routed through shell companies. The board never knew. But they will now. Unless you resign. Fully. No severance. No non-disclosure payout. You walk away. Today. Her smile faltered. You're bluffing. Alex slid his phone across the table. A live email draft to the board chair. Subject line. Urgent. Financial irregularities. Victoria Lang. She stared at it. Then at me. For the first time she looked afraid. You're nothing. She hissed. A nobody he picked up off the street. I leaned forward. Maybe. But this nobody just beat you at your own game. She signed the resignation papers 30 minutes later. Hands shaking. When she left, the room felt lighter. Cleaner. Alex turned to me. You didn't need me for that. I smiled. Real. I know. But I wanted you there. He pulled me close. First time since the hidden room. I let him. Outside, Chicago kept moving. Rain kept falling. But inside, something unbreakable was starting to form. Not dependence. Partnership. And for the first time, I wasn't afraid of what came next. Because whatever it was, I'd chosen it.
Victoria's resignation hit the wires quietly at first. A short press release from Voss Dynamics. The board has accepted Victoria Lang's voluntary departure to pursue new opportunities. We thank her for her contributions and wish her well. No drama, no scandal, just clean surgical removal. But the internet doesn't do quiet. By evening, the tabloids had spun it. Billionaire's ex-partner ousted in mysterious shakeup. New woman in the picture? They didn't have proof yet, but they smelled blood. My name started appearing in comment sections. Elena Marquez, the diner girl, the gold digger, the home wrecker who'd somehow clawed her way from greasy spoons to glass towers. I scrolled on my phone that night, sitting cross-legged on the penthouse couch, leg propped on pillows. Alex was in his study, on calls with the board, making sure the transition stayed smooth. I should have turned it off, should have remembered what he'd said. They don't know you. But I kept reading. She's using him, that she faked the accident. Waitress to millionaire wife in 6 months? Classic. Poor Alex, another leech. Each comment felt like a slap. I'd spent years invisible. Now I was hypervisible, and every pixel hated me. I threw the phone across the cushions. It bounced once, landed screen up, still glowing with venom. Alex found me like that, head in my hands,
breathing shallow. He didn't say anything at first, just sat beside me, close enough our shoulders touched, far enough I could pull away if I needed to. "They're wrong," he said finally. "I know," my voice cracked, "but it still hurts." He reached for my hand. I let him take it. His thumb traced slow circles on my knuckles. "We can fight back," he said, "or we can disappear for a while. Private island, new city, whatever you want." I shook my head. "Running makes it look true. I'm done hiding." He studied me. "Then we go public, on our terms." The plan formed fast, less than 24 hours. First, the narrative shift. I wrote it myself. Not a polished PR statement, raw, first person. A blog post on a new site Alex's team quietly set up overnight, elenamarquezwrites.com. No fancy design, just black text on white, like the pages I used to fill in notebooks at Rosie's. Title: I was the invisible girl. Then a car changed everything. Here's what really happened. I told the truth, most of it. The rain-soaked night, the hospital, the recovery, the penthouse. I didn't name Alex as the driver at first. I called him the man who stopped. I wrote about debt, about dreams deferred, about how kindness, real, messy kindness, can look suspicious when you've spent your life expecting the worst. I wrote about power too, not his. 9. People see money and assume control. They see a broken leg and assume weakness. They see a woman who used to pour coffee and assume she's climbing for status. But surviving isn't climbing, it's refusing to disappear. I posted it at 8 a.m. Chicago time. By noon, it had 50,000 views. By evening, 300,000. Reporters started calling. Not the tabloids, the real ones. The Times, Vanity Fair, a podcast that interviewed women rebuilding after rock bottom. Alex watched the numbers climb from his office. When I walked in, still on one crutch, he was smiling. Not smug, proud. "You didn't need me for that either," he said. "I needed you to believe I could," I answered. But Victoria wasn't finished. She went nuclear 2 days later. A leaked audio surfaced, grainy, edited, but recognizable. My voice from a phone call with a friend months earlier, back when I still lived in Pilsen. "I'm drowning, Jess. 47 grand in debt. I don't know how I'm gonna eat next week." Then a second clip, me laughing with Alex at the taqueria. "This feels like a fairy tale. I keep waiting for the pumpkin." She'd paid someone, probably a private investigator, to pull old voicemails, hack old cloud backups, stitch them together. The narrative flipped hard. Gold digger admits she's after money, laughs about it. The comments turned vicious again. I stared at the article on my laptop, stomach turning. Alex walked in, saw my face, and knew. "She's trying to break you," he said. "She's succeeding." No, he knelt in front of me, again, like in the hidden room. "She's showing the world who she really is. Desperate, vindictive. We end this now." We called an emergency board meeting, virtual. I sat beside Alex in his study, camera off. He didn't want me in the spotlight yet. He presented the evidence we'd held back, the full embezzlement trail. Not just the 3 million, the pattern, the shell companies, the fake invoices. Victoria had been skimming for years, small enough to stay under radar, big enough to fund a comfortable exile if she ever got pushed out. The board chair's voice came through the speakers. "This is actionable, criminal even." Alex didn't gloat. "We don't want prison time. We want her gone, permanently. Resignation retroactive, full forfeiture of any remaining equity, and a public statement acknowledging her departure was due to financial irregularities." Silence on the line. "Then, we'll draft it." Victoria fought, called Alex directly, screaming, crying, threatening lawsuits, countersuits, media exposés. He put her on speaker. I listened. "You think you can destroy me?" she spat. "I built this company with you. I made you." "You helped," Alex said calmly. "Then you stole. The board has the records. Resignate quietly or we go to the authorities. Your choice." She laughed, bitter, broken. "And what about your little waitress? You think she's clean? She'll drag you down." Alex looked at me. I nodded once. "She's already lifted me higher than you ever did," he said. He hung up. The next morning, Victoria's statement dropped. "After careful reflection, I have decided to step away from Voss Dynamics to address personal financial matters that require my full attention. I regret any confusion caused by recent speculation in which the company continued success." No mention of embezzlement, no apology. But the subtext was clear. She was finished. The stock dipped half a point, then recovered by lunch. Reporters pivoted. Stories shifted from scandal to redemption, from boardroom betrayal to quiet exit, the fall of Victoria Lang. My blog post got linked in every major outlet. I started getting emails, not hate, but hope. Women who'd been invisible too. Single moms, debt-ridden graduates, dreamers who'd stopped dreaming. One wrote, "You made me believe I could start again." I cried reading it. That night, Alex and I stood on the terrace. Wind off the lake was sharp, but the sky was clear, stars fighting through city glow. He wrapped his arms around me from behind. I leaned into him. "You did that," he whispered against my hair. "Not me, you." I turned in his arms, looked up at him. "I couldn't have without you believing I could." He kissed me then, slow, careful, like he was asking permission with every breath. I kissed him back. For the first time, it didn't feel like lisk. It felt like power. Real power. The kind that doesn't need money or secrets or hidden rooms. The kind that comes from deciding you're worth fighting for, and then actually fighting.
Victory over Victoria felt like breathing for the first time in months. The headlines faded, the hate comments slowed to a trickle. My blog post kept gaining readers. Not viral famous, but steady. Real people finding it through shares from other women who'd been invisible too. I started getting messages, thank yous, stories that mirrored mine, invitations to speak at small online panels about resilience and reinvention. For the first time, my name meant something beyond a debt ledger or a diner name tag. Alex and I settled into something that felt dangerously close to normal. Mornings, coffee on the terrace, him reading market reports while I typed new chapters. Afternoons, him at the office, me at physical therapy or writing in the library. Evenings, takeout from places we both loved, quiet talks that stretched late. We kissed more, slow, exploratory, like we were still learning each other's edges. We hadn't gone further than that, not yet. There was an unspoken agreement, no rushing. We'd already crashed into each other hard enough. Then came the night that cracked everything open. It was a Thursday in late November, snow flurries drifting past the windows like ash. I'd finished a solid draft of the first third of my new novel, about a woman who loses everything in one rainy night and finds herself in the wreckage. I was proud, nervous, ready to show him. He came home late, later than usual. I heard the elevator ding, the soft click of his shoes on marble, the rustle of his coat coming off. When he walked into the living room, he looked wrong. Shoulders slumped, eyes shadowed, like the man who'd knelt in the hidden room had returned, but older, wearier. "You okay?" I asked, setting my laptop aside. He didn't answer right away, just crossed to the bar cart, poured 2 fingers of scotch, neat, and downed half in one swallow. That wasn't like him. He rarely drank more than a glass of wine. "Sit with me," he said finally, voice rough. I moved to the couch. He sat beside me, not touching. The space between us felt wider than the lake outside. "There's one more secret," he said. My stomach dropped. "Alex? No more hidden rooms, no photos, no surveillance. This one's different." He stared into the glass like it held answers. "I have cancer, stage 3 pancreatic, diagnosed 6 months before the accident." The room tilted. I couldn't breathe. 6 months? I echoed. My voice sounded far away. "Give or take." He took another sip. "They caught it early-ish. Aggressive treatment, chemo, radiation, surgery if it shrinks enough. But the odds?" He shrugged, a small defeated motion. "Not great. Maybe a year, maybe less." Everything inside me went cold, then hot, then numb. "You knew," I whispered. "When you hit me, when you brought me here, when you told me you were dying inside, you meant..." Literally. He met my eyes for the first time since he sat down. I was running out of time. I'd spent years building walls so high no one could get in. Then I saw you, and I thought, if I only have a little while left, I want to feel something real before it ends, even if it's just watching someone else live the life I never did. Rage surged up so fast I couldn't stop it. "You used me." The words landed like a slap. He didn't flinch. At first, yes, I did. I told myself one good thing, one honest connection would make the end bearable. But then you stayed. You fought. You made me laugh. You made me want to fight too. And suddenly it wasn't about dying anymore. It was about living. Every single day with you was worth more than every dollar I ever made. Tears burned my eyes. I stood, awkward on my still healing leg, and backed away. "You should have told me." "I know." "You let me fall for you knowing you might not be here next year." "I know." I turned, staring out at the snow. "I thought we were building something. I thought..." "We are," his voice cracked, the first time I'd ever heard it break. "Elena, look at me." I didn't want to, but I did. He was crying, quietly, no dramatics, just tears tracking down his face like he'd forgotten how to stop them. "I didn't plan to love you," he said. "I planned to help you, maybe steal a few months of feeling human, then fade out. But you changed the plan. You made me want forever, and I hate myself for not telling you sooner. I hate that I took your choice away, again." Silence swallowed the room. I wanted to leave, to pack a bag and disappear into the night like I'd almost done before, to protect what was left of my heart. But my feet wouldn't move, because beneath the rage, beneath the fear, I still saw him, the man who'd knelt twice now, once in shame, once in surrender.
The man who destroyed his own secrets to keep me. The man who taught me Tower wasn't borrowed, it was claimed. I walked back, slowly, sat beside him. "How long have you been fighting alone?" I asked. "Since the diagnosis. No one knows. Not the board, not my family, what's left of it. Just my oncologist and me." I reached out, took his hand. His fingers were cold. "Then you're not alone anymore," I said. He looked at me like I'd spoken another language. "I'm angry," I continued. "I'm terrified. I might hate you tomorrow, but I'm not walking away. Not tonight. Not until we've tried everything." He exhaled, a shuddering sound. "I don't deserve that." "Maybe not." I squeezed his hand. "But I do. I deserve to decide what I fight for. And right now, I'm fighting for us." We sat like that for a long time, snow falling thicker outside, the city lights blurring into soft halos. Later, he showed me the scans, the reports, the treatment schedule, chemo every 2 weeks, scans every month, surgery on the table if the tumor responded. I listened, asked questions, held his hand when the numbers looked grim. When we finally went to bed, separate rooms still, but doors open, I lay awake listening to the quiet of the penthouse, to the faint sound of him breathing in the next room. I cried then, quietly, for the girl who thought her biggest problem was dead, for the man who thought his biggest problem was time, for the fragile, impossible thing we'd built anyway. The next morning I woke early, made coffee, left a note on the counter. "We fight this together. No secrets, no running. Your turn to make the coffee tomorrow. E." When he found it, he didn't say anything, just walked into my room, sat on the edge of the bed, and pulled me into his arms. We stayed like that until the sun rose over the lake. Bright, cold, unforgiving. But we were still here, still breathing, still choosing each other, even when the clock was ticking louder than ever.
The months after Alex's confession blurred into a rhythm of hospitals, hope, and quiet defiance. Chemo days were the worst. Him pale and shivering in the infusion chair, me sitting beside him with a blanket I'd bought from a street vendor near the medical center. Soft gray fleece, nothing fancy, but it felt like armor. I'd hold his hand while the drugs dripped in, slow and relentless. He never complained, never asked for pity, just squeezed back when the nausea hit hardest. I learned a language of oncology fast: port lines, neutropenia, tumor markers, CA 19-9, numbers that rose and fell like the stock market he used to dominate. Some weeks the scans showed shrinkage, small victories we celebrated with takeout sushi and bad hospital TV reruns. Other weeks the numbers crept up, and the room got quieter. We didn't talk about if the treatment failed, we talked about when it worked. In between hospital runs, I wrote. Not just fragments anymore, full chapters. The novel poured out of me like it had been waiting for permission. It wasn't about Alex, not exactly. It was about women who'd been told their stories didn't matter. Waitresses, single moms, dreamers buried under bills and doubt, who found their voices in the wreckage. I wrote late at night while he slept, the cursor glowing in the dark penthouse. Every page felt like breathing. One evening in early spring, Alex came home from a follow-up scan looking lighter than he had in months. He dropped his keys on the counter, walked straight to me in the library, and said 3 words I'd been terrified to hope for. Remission. I froze, pen mid-sentence. He repeated it slower, like he needed to hear it himself. Complete response. No evidence of disease. They're calling it remission. I stood so fast the chair ticked. Then I was in his arms, both of us laughing and crying at the same time, the kind of messy, ugly relief that makes your chest ache. He lifted me off the floor, careful of my leg, which still twinged sometimes, and spun us once before setting me down. "We did it," he whispered against my hair. "You did it." "No," I said, pulling back to look at him. "We did, together." That night, we didn't celebrate with champagne or fancy dinners. We ordered pizza, deep dish from Giordano's, extra sauce, and sat on the terrace wrapped in blankets. The lake was calm for once, reflecting the city lights like scattered diamonds. We talked about nothing and everything, where we'd travel when he was stronger, what kind of dog we might get. He wanted a rescue mutt. I wanted something ridiculous like a French bulldog. How we'd never take quiet mornings for granted again. But remission didn't mean the fight was over. It meant the next phase, maintenance scans, follow-ups, the constant shadow of what if it comes back. Alex knew it. I knew it. We just chose not to let it own us. Meanwhile, my book kept growing. I finished the draft in 6 weeks, raw, unpolished, but honest.
I showed it to Alex first. He read it in one sitting, sitting on the couch with his feet up, highlighter in hand like a college kid cramming. When he finished, he didn't speak for a long minute. Then, "This is going to change lives, starting with mine." I laughed. "It's not even edited yet." "It doesn't need to be perfect. It needs to be real." He set the manuscript down. "Publish it, not through some big house that'll water it down. Do it your way." That was the seed. I started researching small presses, hybrid models, indie routes, but every pill felt like compromise, gatekeepers, percentages, timelines that didn't match the urgency I felt. One night, lying awake beside Alex, we'd finally started sharing a bed, doors no longer closed. The idea hit. Why not do it myself? He turned toward me in the dark. "What do you mean?" "A publishing house, for voices like mine, like the women in the book, stories that don't fit the mainstream mold. No agents, no gatekeepers, just real stories, real people." He didn't laugh, didn't say it was impossible. He just asked, "What do you need?" I listed it out the next morning over coffee. Seed money, he offered without hesitation. Legal setup, a website, distribution channels, editors I could trust. But most important, control. My name on the door, my vision. He made one call. By afternoon, a lawyer was drafting incorporation papers. Elena Voss Publishing, my last name first, deliberately. Not because I was claiming his empire, because I was building my own. We launched quietly. First title, my novel, Invisible No More. We printed a small run, 5,000 copies, through a local printer. I designed the cover myself on Canva at 2 a.m., a woman walking out of rain into light, simple, striking. No stock photo model, just silhouette and hope. We sent advance copies to bloggers, bookstagrammers, women's groups. Word spread slow, then fast. A TikTok video of a reader crying on the subway went viral, then another, then interviews, NPR, a podcast called Women Who Rise, even a short segment on Good Morning America. The first printing sold out in 3 weeks, the second in 10 days. By summer, Invisible No More hit the New York Times bestseller list, not the big fiction one, but the indie and self-published category. It didn't matter, the number felt surreal. Media wanted me now, not Alex, me. Photographers showed up at the penthouse for a profile in Vogue. I wore jeans and a simple white tee, nothing borrowed, nothing staged. The headline read, "From diner waitress to literary force, Elena Marquez redefines publishing power." Alex watched every interview from the sidelines, proud in a way that had nothing to do with his money or his name. One night, after a long day of press, I found him in the library staring at the first copy of my book on the shelf. "You were always the millionaire here," he said quietly, "in courage, in heart, in everything that actually matters." I walked over, wrapped my arms around him from behind. "You gave me the space to remember that." He turned, cupped my face. "I almost lost you before I even had you. I won't make that mistake again." Then he dropped to one knee, not with a ring this time, but with a question that carried more weight than any diamond. "Will you build the rest of this life with me?" he asked. "Not because I saved you, not because we survived cancer, because we saved each other, every single day." Tears came fast. I didn't wipe them away. "Yes," I said. "Every day, forever." He stood, kissed me like the world was ending and beginning at the same time. Outside, Chicago glittered. Same city, same rain-soaked streets where it all started. But inside, everything had changed. I wasn't the broke girl on the pavement anymore. I was Elena Marquez, author, publisher, survivor, partner, unstoppable, and for the first time in my life, I believed it.
5 years have passed since that rainy Chicago night when a black SUV changed everything. 5 years since I lay on wet asphalt thinking my life was over, broke, broken, alone. 5 years since a stranger knelt in the rain beside me and called an ambulance, like my survival mattered more than his dry suit. Today, I stand in a sunlit loft in the West Loop, the new headquarters of Elena Voss Publishing. Floor-to-ceiling windows frame the city skyline. Same lake, same towers, different view. The space used to be an old garment factory. Now it's alive with bookshelves, open desks, and the low hum of conversation. Writers work here, some full-time, some dropping in with laptops and dreams. We publish stories that mainstream houses once ignored. Working-class voices, immigrant narratives, survivors rewriting their endings. Last quarter, we hit our first million in revenue. Not billionaire money, but mine. Ours. Earned. I'm 33 now, CEO, editor-in-chief, sometimes still the girl who pours imaginary coffee when I'm stressed.
My leg healed years ago. No limp, no scars visible unless you know where to look. The only reminder is a faint ache on cold days, like the city whispering, "Don't forget where you started." Alex is healthy, remission held, scans every 6 months now, down from 3. He jokes that cancer gave him a second chance at being human. I tell him he was always human, he just needed someone to remind him. We married 2 years ago, quietly, on a rainy October afternoon in the same Pilsen Park where I used to sit crying after bad shifts. No big wedding, no paparazzi, just us, Marcus as witness, and a street musician playing jazz under an umbrella. I wore a simple white dress I bought off the rack. He wore the same charcoal suit from the night he hit me, cleaned, pressed, symbolic. We laughed about it, cry a little, said vows that weren't poetic, just true. "I promise to choose you every day," he said, "even when I'm scared, especially when I'm scared." "I promise to keep choosing us," I answered, "no matter what the rain brings." We kept my last name first on everything, publishing house, book credits, even the merit certificate. Not a power move, a reminder. I built this. He supported it. We're partners, not merger. The company grew fast after Invisible No More hit the lists. We followed with anthologies, Broke But Breathing, Women Who Walked Away, Rain Stories, each one selling better than the last. We started a mentorship program, paid internships for writers from underserved communities, workshops on craft and contracts. Last year, we launched a nonprofit arm, grants for single parents chasing degrees, microloans for indie authors to cover editing and covers. Every time a check clears, I think of the $47,312.47 debt that once owned me. It's gone now, paid off in full the year after remission. I framed the final statement and hung it in my office, not as shame, but as proof. Numbers don't define you forever. Alex still runs Boss Dynamics, but quieter now. Fewer late nights, more mornings with me. He's mentoring young coders, mostly women and people of color, through a foundation we started together. He says he's paying forward the second chance I gave him. I say he's just being the man he always could have been. We live in the same penthouse, but it feels different. Warmer. Books everywhere. Mine, his, ours. A rescue mutt named Rain. Yes, we compromised. Sleeps on the terrace rug. Photos on the walls. Us at book launches, at scans, at quiet dinners. No hidden rooms, no secrets, just life. Sometimes I walk the old route from Rosie's to the accident spot. The diner's still there. Same faded sign, same buzzing fluorescence. Tony retired. New owners kept the name. I don't go in often. When I do, the new waitress smiles like I'm any customer. I tip big, leave quietly. Invisible again, but by choice. Last week, I spoke at a women's conference downtown. 500 people in the audience. I told them the story, not the polished version, the real one. The stalking, the hidden room, the cancer, the fights. The choice to stay, to fight, to build. Afterwards, a girl approached me, maybe 22, eyes wide, hand shaking as she held my book. "I'm drowning in debt," she whispered. "I want to write, but I don't know if I can." I took her hand. "You already are. The wanting is the start. The rest is just steps." She cried. I hugged her, told her to email me. We'll get her story out, one way or another. That night, back home, Alex found me on the terrace staring at the lake. "Proud of you," he said, wrapping his arms around me from behind. "I'm proud of us," I answered. He kissed my temple. "Remember what I told you that first night in the hospital?" I smiled. The real power isn't money. It's deciding you're worth everything, and then taking it. "You decided," he said softly. I did. The city lights shimmered below us, same streets, same rain waiting in the clouds, but I wasn't the girl on the pavement anymore. I was Elena Voss, author, publisher, wife, survivor, force, from broke and invisible to seen, strong, and unstoppable. Not because a millionaire saved me, because I chose to save myself. And along the way, we saved each other. The The accident wasn't fate. It wasn't destiny. It was a collision of choices, of risks, of two broken people who refused to stay broken. And if I could go back to that rainy night, lying on the cold street with pain exploding in my leg, I'd tell that girl one thing. Hold on. This isn't the end. This is the beginning. And it's going to be beautiful.